Hello my dear friends and welcome back to another very exciting Star Wars video. It is I coming at you once again, your favourite galactic hostess, Star Wars Meg. George Lucas is going to be speaking at San Diego Comic-Con later today. I can't wait to cover it, can't wait to talk about it, but in the meantime my friends, we're going to be looking at something a bit more chill. Something which has been bothering me for a very long time, but it's finally resurfaced. So, it was back in 2019, just before The Rise of Skywalker came out. There was a viral video going around, I don't know if it was TikTok or Instagram, but basically, a Star Wars fan came out and said, the Skywalker Saga movies are mistitled. The titles of the films should be swapped, should be changed, and now it's come back not in video form, but in meme form, and that makes it easier to visualize, and we're going to go through them, and I'm going to be explaining why this guy is wrong, why whoever made this is mistaken, why the original titles given by George Lucas for episodes 1 to 6, and then J.J. Abrams and Rian Johnson for 7 to 9 were right. They shouldn't be changed, and within this is a fundamental misunderstanding of Star Wars. So, let's dive straight in. We're going to begin with episode 1 and episode 9, because the person claims these two titles are interchangeable. They say episode 1 shouldn't have been The Phantom Menace, it should have been The Rise of Skywalker, because this is the film where Anakin literally rises. Qui-Gon thinks he's the chosen one, he's discovered on Tatooine, and he's taken back to Coruscant. The Rise of Anakin, The Rise of Skywalker. And the reason episode 9 is The Phantom Menace is because Palpatine is in the shadows, in hiding in the unknown regions on Exegol, the revived, cloned Emperor. But let me explain to you, my friends, why this is, in my opinion, a crock of piss. I get where they're coming from. At face value, it makes sense. But this argument originates before this meme was ever created. There were fans back in the day saying, why is episode 1 The Phantom Menace? I'll tell you why. Episode 1 is when the Sith, after like 1,000 years, finally come out of hiding, reveal themselves to the Jedi. That's why Darth Maul says, at last we will reveal ourselves to the Jedi. At last we will have revenge. And so then some fans say, so is Maul the Phantom Menace? No, because Maul is the one who presents himself to the Jedi, but he is the Sith apprentice. The real threat, the threat in hiding, the Phantom Menace, if you will, is his master, Darth Sidious, Palpatine. Orchestrating political events from the shadows, the Battle of Naboo, he's playing the Senate, and so his cunning and secrecy make him the perfect Phantom Menace. That's why episode 1 should remain as it is. As for episode 9 being titled The Rise of Skywalker,
Rey Skywalker,
I thought that was a mistake back when it came out. That is an awful title for episode 9. Even if they didn't stick with Colin Trevorrow's script, they should have still called it Duel of the Fates. Don't you think it's a much better title? I do. And so now, my dear friends, we move on to episodes 2 and 3. And this one really bugs me. I've had a lot of time to look at this and digest it. I saw this last night, but just looking at it now again, it's giving me a headache. Because like I said, this goes against the point of those films. So this person claims Revenge of the Sith should be Attack of the Clones. Episode 2 should be Revenge of the Sith. And episode 3 Attack of the Clones. No. Their argument is this. Episode 2 is Revenge of the Sith because Dooku fights Anakin and Obi-Wan and Yoda, and Palpatine is beginning to groom Anakin. But that's not Revenge of the Sith. The reason episode 3 is Revenge of the Sith is that is when the Sith grand plan that goes all the way back to Darth Bane finally comes to fruition. Darth Sidious becomes Emperor of the Galaxy, Order 66 wipes out the Jedi, and like he says, once more the Sith will rule the galaxy. That is their revenge. It doesn't happen in episode 2. The only reason, by the way, they're saying episode 3 should be Attack of the Clones is because of Order 66, the Grand Army of the Republic, under the influence of their inhibitor chips, take out their Jedi generals. But that's not Attack of the Clones. The reason episode 2 is Attack of the Clones is because that's when the Grand Army of the Republic is first deployed, after Obi-Wan learns about their existence on Kamino. But when they're first commissioned for the Battle of Geonosis, that's in episode 2. And that is the Attack of the Clones. That's how George wanted it. So now we move on to the original trilogy, and oh my goodness, these title suggestions are hideous. They begin by saying that episode 4 A New Hope should have been Return of the Jedi. Absolutely not. Their argument is because Luke comes into the picture, he's about to become a Jedi, Obi-Wan's been watching him since the end of Revenge of the Sith, Obi-Wan knows he's Anakin's son, and he wants to train him to become the next generation of Jedi. Obi-Wan and Yoda believe that Luke was the key to restoring balance to the Force. Well, here's the problem. The reason episode 6 is titled Return of the Jedi is because the Jedi who returns is Anakin, not Luke. Luke is the catalyst to bringing the Jedi back. Originally, George was going to call it Revenge of the Jedi, but then he changed it to Return, because the Jedi do not get revenge. That is a trait of the dark side. And so the reason episode 4 is titled A New Hope is because Luke is the new hope for the galaxy. Obi-Wan sets him on the path to becoming a hero, but the full return of the Jedi has not happened yet. The Empire still reigns, Luke only begins his training, and he still has his entire Jedi journey ahead of him. So that's why episode 4 is not Return of the Jedi. The next one is even worse. They say episode 5, The Empire Strikes Back, should have been The Force Awakens. This one really baffles me. I think they're basing this on Luke training under Yoda, and that's why The Force Awakens. Maybe they're saying The Force Awakens in Leia, which it does on Bespin. But nonetheless, the reason episode 5 is The Empire Strikes Back is because this is the movie where the heroes lose. After Yavin, after the rebels move to Hoth, the Empire literally strikes back, and the heroes are left at the end, desperate and having lost. Han has been taken to Jabba's palace, Luke finds out the truth about Vader being his father, he lost his hand, and things were looking pretty dire. So, episode 5 should remain the same. The rebels literally destroyed their Death Star. You don't think the Empire was going to strike back and retaliate? Of course they did. The Force Awakens for episode 5 to me makes very little sense. There is a darker Force subplot, but the Force has already awoken. The reason it's The Force Awakens for episode 7 is because many years have passed since Luke went into exile, since there were any major known Jedi. So then for episode 6, the final installment of the original trilogy, they say Return of the Jedi should be The Last Jedi. For this one, I can definitely see the rationale behind it. You know, Yoda calls Luke the Last Jedi in the movie, which incidentally is the reason episode 8 is titled The Last Jedi, but in this context, it doesn't work. Episode 6 is meant to end in an uplifting triumph. The rebels won at Andor, Anakin has been turned back to the light, the Jedi have returned. Luke is about to embark on his own journey to found a new Jedi temple. The reason episode 8 is The Last Jedi is because in the eyes of the Resistance, Luke was the final hope. And the error that the First Order made is in thinking that if Luke dies, the Jedi die. Because Kylo says, "And when I've killed you, I will have killed the last Jedi." And Luke responds by saying, "No, I will not be the last Jedi." So for me, in terms of symbolism, in terms of Luke coming back to save the Resistance, in terms of his status, The Last Jedi works better for episode 8. But for episode 6, it's got to be Return of the Jedi. So now, my friends, we move on to the sequel trilogy. This one is really silly. Episode 7, The Empire Strikes Back. Well, I think one of the biggest criticisms fans had of The First Order is they're just a newer version of the Empire, the Empire 2.0. The First Order rose out of the ashes of the Empire, or as we know from the Mandoverse, the Imperial Remnant. The Empire Strikes Back is a bit too on the nose, but The Force Awakens works best, because for the first time in a long time, there is a new Jedi to be the hope for the Resistance. The Force Awakens in Rey. Then they say episode 8 should be A New Hope, Rey's training and so on. I really don't like this. I don't think it's appropriate for the movie. And we've already covered why The Phantom Menace is best as episode 1. So I think this overall retitling is a fun little game. I can understand why some people think that some of these titles work better, but for me I think the originals are much more suitable. But that's basically all there is to it. What do you guys think? Do you agree with the retitling, or do you prefer the original titles?